Hey, it's the LD Poker Coach. Thanks for tuning in. Another play report. This one is for November 18th, which is a Saturday at Parx Casino, playing the 2-5. But before we get into it too far, I do want to say it's Thanksgiving week coming up, so happy Thanksgiving to anybody in the U.S. that's celebrating. Maybe some extra days off this week that we can all use for some poker. So really, the good news is that I did have another session. I did manage to put in my hours, and that's the primary concern that I have as a professional. I really just want to keep on putting in my hours, be consistent about showing up and playing the best game I can, and that should take care of me in the long run. However, I do have to say that there has been a collapse in my chart's progress, and I might have to take some steps back. So, not the ideal situation. I've had quite a bit of regression in my results, but we'll get into that right now. So I take a lot of pride in this being the no bad beats community. We don't tell bad beat stories. So I'm presenting the hand so that you can kind of understand where my thinking is at, but I hope you don't take it as a bad beat. I'm in middle position and I'm sitting with $600. The primary opponent here covers me. It folds to me to 6 of clubs, 6 of spades. 6 of diamonds, 6 of spades. I open for $15. This is at 2-5, so this is 3x the big blind. The button, the primary opponent, flat calls. Everybody else folds, 2 of us into the flop. The flop comes down 3 of clubs, 4 of clubs, 5 of spades. So that's an open-ended straight draw for me, and there's 2 clubs out there. I go ahead and I continue for $15. My opponent raises me to $50. I see myself as being ahead here because I do have a pair and I have a pretty big draw. So I go ahead and I re-raise to $125. My opponent doesn't think very long and he shoves and I go ahead and call him. So we got it in on the flop with 2 cards to come. Opponent shows ace of clubs, queen of clubs. The turn comes the 10 of diamonds, and the river comes the jack of clubs, giving my opponent the nut flush. And he covered me, so he took my whole stack. So the flop was a little bit more even than I realized. When I was coming home from the casino, I thought that I was a little bit more ahead than I was, but it's actually a coin flip at that stage. So I'm not proud of getting myself in there with a coin flip. But really, it's the second best possible flop for 6s. You really can't fold. I mean, if 3, 4, 5 is not your flop, then why are you playing 6s, right? So that was a little bit unfortunate. On the reciprocation side, though, I feel much better about this hand because my opponent shoved on the flop with a draw. Granted, he had a draw and 2 overs, but I'm not sure that I'm making the same move there. So that's a situation where he could be stacked in that situation, but I wouldn't allow myself to be stacked in that situation because I wouldn't make the same shove. So it's an interesting way to look at the hand, and I do have other content on here about reciprocation. Feel free to find it. But I'm not making the same moves that he is. It's a little bit of a risky shove to shove that flop because I'm clearly showing strength, right? I was the opener. I can easily have a huge pair there. I could easily have pocket kings or something like that. So yeah, reciprocation wise, I'm not sure I agree with his shove on the flop. So the bottom line is that I am now back to the bankroll that I started with 2 months ago. So all the gains I have made for the past 2 months are now gone. Now, however, keep in mind, I'm just a weekend player. So 2 hours right now for me represents about 44 hours. I think I have like 43 and a half, 44 hours in my records. So it's not the worst possible result in the world, but I am basically back to the same initial bankroll that I seeded myself with for these play sessions that I'm doing. So not great to be even after 44 hours, but it's much better than being bust. So I'm okay with that portion of it. We all have to take steps backward at some point, and we all have to fine tune some things. Now, I'm still fairly confident and fairly happy with the way that I'm playing. There's a couple things I still need to, fine tune. But I think this was, this has been a scenario where for the last 3 sessions, I've taken some tough beats. And I have had negative sessions 3 times in a row. So it is time for me to move back to 1-3 simply because I want to be playing 2-5 with some of the winnings that I get from 1-3. Will I sit in 2-5 again? Sure. And as a matter of fact, I may change my mind the next time I'm there. Maybe I will decide to sit in 2-5 again, even with my initial bankroll. Because again, I think I'm playing well. It's just I've taken some negative variance against some of my hands. So I'm gonna take a step back just to give myself the discipline to be able to say, hey, sometimes you do need to go down a level, because I'm going to need that in the future. Maybe when I move up to 10-10, I won't be ready for 10-10 and I need to go back to 2-5. So this is good practice for me to be able to say, hey, I can move back down in levels, no problem. So I'm going to do that, but it's not necessarily because I'm ready. I'm doing that before my bankroll, not because I'm not ready for 2-5. So I'm looking forward to that. Alright, so I always close with what I did right and what I did wrong. In this session, I did good with my hydration and diet planning. I had a bottle of water before I left. I had a bottle of water in the car ride there because the car ride is over an hour. So I had some water, and then I had my coffee when I was at the table. So did pretty good with that as far as how it dovetails into my keto diet. I have a positive mindset right now about playing 1-3. Yes, it's a little bit of a step back, but I'm not negative or sore about it. And frankly, I'm also proud of myself for being able to get this episode out to you. It's not always easy to talk about losses, but it's for me, for the professional mindset, this is just part of the game. So I'm happy to share it with all of you. I want to be accountable. I could have just as easily said, I'm not going to put out an episode today, but I'm doing it because I want to remain accountable. So I'm proud of myself for still getting this episode out and owning my losses. As far as what I did wrong, I didn't have the greatest focus during the majority of my session. I still need to work on being a little bit more disciplined about putting the phone away, being a little bit more disciplined about the level of attention that I'm giving the game, not necessarily looking around the room and things like that. So still need to make some improvements there, but really that's going to be a constant process, right? There is no finish line for a process like that. So the most I can do is just keep on trying and keep on minimizing the effects of that. All right, so that's my poker report for this week. Maybe place a little bit extra, this week with the Thanksgiving holiday. But I hope all of you are well. I hope all of you have a good Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you again soon. Hey, let's keep the conversation going. You can reach me on all socials at LB Poker Coach, all one word, on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.